Now, Phil, I'm sure that you know this guy, Andrew Ross Sorkin. He's a guy who's on every morning on TV, on CNBC, on Squawk Box. He's also a guy who is a New York Times financial reporter. So he spent the last 8 years of his life writing this book about 1929 and the big crash. Well, we're on the anniversary of that. And he goes on to 60 Minutes, and they talk to him about the book. But of course, the first question is there anything 1929 that reminds you of what's going on in the market today? Here's what he had to say.
I would argue to you that the economy is being propped up almost artificially by the artificial intelligence boom. There are hundreds of billions of dollars that are being invested today in artificial intelligence. This is either a gold rush or a sugar rush, and we probably won't know for a couple of years which one it is. We will have a crash. I just can't tell you when, and I can't tell you how deep. But I can assure you, unfortunately, I wish I wasn't saying this, we will have a crash.
Don't you love it?
Are you serious? There's going to be a storm. I don't know when. I don't know how. I'm not sure how big, but it will. Wow. What a great prediction that predicted nothing. I mean, that was the most pointless prediction of all time, Randy. What are we doing here?
He said nothing. He absolutely said nothing. All right, Phil, this is where I want to go with this. These headlines and stuff like this happens every single day in the financial media. It can't help but affect us. I mean, as the market goes up, everybody wonders when's it going to go down. So when people come in to see you, you're the guy who's sitting there across the table from them, and they have to come to a decision on what their risk level is. Is it swayed by the headlines? Do they say, push me to cash, or push me all in, or move that around? Or is it something that you try to set? I hate to use the term set and forget, but we don't like that term. But at the same time, is then that what we're looking for?
Yeah, right. Striking the balance. I would say never based on a headline, but you get your understanding of how much risk you want to take. You set your portfolio up to be that, and then you make tweaks and changes along retirement, but more so based on your life, not based obviously on the headlines. And where I think people are struggling now is, how do we find that happy place of where I want to be? I think it's hard to connect your investments to where you want to be, because a lot of people don't understand or know the risk that they are taking, right? We have a good feeling of how much risk we want to take, but how do we connect our investment, our portfolio to that? And a lot of that's because we've been through such a crazy bull run, these positive markets, these 20% years, year after year, where it's tainted our outlook on the market. But there was a study done, the health and retirement study. It looked at the Great Recession, the 07 to 09, that 2008 crash, and how it affected wealth and retirement of people that were approaching retirement, right? That not yet retired, but soon to. And it was interesting, a lot of impact beyond just the portfolio. Obviously, people lost a lot. The average retiree lost over a quarter of their nest egg in 2008, but it also started to impact how we lived our lives. It changed when we elect Social Security, right? Forced a lot of people out of fear to elect right away at 62. It might not have been the best plan for their long-term retirement. Pensions took hits in 2008, right? Those incomes that you were counting on started to go down in retirement. And then people started to change their lifestyle, which is the last thing you want to see, is us changing what we're doing, canceling a vacation because the market went down. Those are the types of things we don't want to see people do. And it's this idea that when the market drops, especially when we're approaching or very new into retirement, that is the most vulnerable time to go through a downturn, is losing early in retirement.
And Greg, you've talked about that in the past, that sequence of returns, going into retirement and then losing right away. It's hard to recover from something like that, and that's what people don't want to happen. So, I mean, I can't blame them for being scared, but at the same time, how do you find the Goldilocks area? Not too much, not too little, just right for your clients.
So I got three things. When Phil was talking, I had two, but I'm going to add one because Phil did such a good job. And I want to address 3 points, and I'll answer your question as part of those 3 points. The first is the bubble. It's inarguable that there's a bubble that will pop. And the reason being is when you have revolutionary technology, think of 2000. This is an exact replica in a lot of ways. The internet happened. The internet's still here and a really big deal, right? But there was a pop. And the reason there's a pop is because the investment is inefficient. It doesn't really understand which parts of the market are going to be able to be monetized, which parts are going to be the home runs. So everyone's dumping money into everything. So the market will sort itself out. It's not going to be like a subprime where there's a fallacy of a type of investment like the subprime market crash where we had the mortgages that were kind of funny money. This is more a efficiency play where there's going to be a pop where people are like, we put a lot of money in things and it pay out, and then people are going to have to pay back some pain there because that's not going to obviously go anywhere. Just like the .coms that didn't go anywhere, but it is here to stay. AI is here to stay. The question is who can get the market efficient faster. So like to answer his question, we know that there's going to be inefficiencies, and there's going to be inefficiencies in the next couple of years, right? Like you'll know that some people will hit, took big swings, they're going to miss. Some people that took big swings are going to win. And it's just a question of who can get efficient with AI investment the fastest. But there will be inefficiencies that will cause a setback. Like it's inarguable. That can't not happen. So I hope that was a little better than Sorkin's answer. I feel like I gave a little bit more meat than something's going to happen sometime in the future. We just don't know when or how or how much. The second thing is the happiness. What's the right amount? What's the right amount here? And how do people do this? I love Phil's research about happiness. I looked at the happiness chart, actually just happiness by age. And believe it or not, happiness goes up universally the older you get. I was surprised. I looked at like 3 or 4 different studies, and everything shows this happiness curve that's like a smiley face, and it actually is a smirk. It gets way higher as you get older. And that led me to a, wisdom versus knowledge moment where people start realizing probably life's about more than numbers. And it's about a life lived, and it's about all these special things that eventually you stop obsessing. You're like, yeah, I'm going to make it. I'm 70. I'm in a good spot. Like, and I think that provides this, what really counts in life. And if you can get to that point faster, your happiness smile goes up even more and your smirk gets even steeper. And I think that is the real magic. Most people don't focus on what matters. They focus on numbers and statements. All that really matters is how you feel. Feelings aren't real, but they're the most important thing in our lives. And people discount that. How you feel dictates who you are, right? So why not we focus on being happier? And to do that, our roadmap was built to make the smirk steeper. And if we can get the smirk steeper faster by giving you information that shows you maybe you don't need as much risk and you are safe and maybe you should spend more money and build more memories. That was the idea all along. We are a disrupting company that's not built just to help retirees navigate, the intricacies of the tactical parts of retirement. We're trying to change the industry and how they think about retirement. We want people to actually live better retirement lives faster and get happier faster. And usually that means that they need to feel safer. So if they know exactly where they're at from a risk standpoint, they will spend more money. They will be more relaxed. And that smile will go up faster. That's why we built the roadmap. And the market risk report is part of that, Randy. When we dive in, we show people exactly what's at risk. And then we compare it to some of the bad times to show what your assets would do in those time periods. How much risk are you taking? Is it too much? And more importantly, do you need it to do everything you want in retirement? I think that's the ultimate bridge in this roadmap is, yeah, you're taking a bunch on a risk that I don't think you need it. I think you can do everything you want based off what you said your goals are in retirement with less risk, which means less stress, which probably equals more happiness. All that can happen, but it starts off with getting you a baseline of what risk you're taking. And we do that at no cost with every roadmap we build with the market risk report.
One of the things that people find out is very common when we run that roadmap for retirement during market risk is to find out that they're very much more at risk than what they thought. And that might be you. And you may not need that amount of risk to navigate your way through retirement. Let's find out what that number is and let's figure it out together. Getyourroadmap.com is our website. Getyourroadmap.com. We'll talk about taxes with our IRA tax plan, the fee analysis to find out what's going on in there that a lot of people don't know about. We're going to talk about long-term care. Nobody wants to talk about it. We will. Income forecast. How much are you going to get for a paycheck in your retirement years outside Social Security? How do you do that? That's what the roadmap is, and we want to do that for you at no charge. And somebody wrote in, I just made a huge mistake. I gifted my house to my kids without fully understanding the tax and legal consequences. What do I do now? A lot of people think this is a shrewd financial move. Sometimes it can kind of backfire on you. Phil, tell me a little bit about one of the problems or a couple of the problems that this person might face if they put their kid on their house deed.
Yeah, I'll leave some of the legal side to Greg as the attorney, but I'll cover the tax piece. That's my world. And
all right.
When you, the way the tax system's set up right now, as long as we have it, we have a step up in cost basis, meaning when you pass away and if you leave your house to your kids, when they inherit that house, they don't get your cost basis. They get the step up to where it is now, meaning they can sell it and not pay any taxes. Whereas it's different when you gift your house to your kid, they inherit your cost basis. What you paid for that house is now they're saying what they got that for. So if you paid $250 for your house and it's now worth $400,000 and you gift it to your kid, if you pass away, they go to sell it. There's $150,000 of gain. They are paying taxes, capital gains taxes on that. Whereas if you left it to them in your estate through a trust or through a transfer on death, then they would have zero tax. So that's a potentially, in this example, a 20,000 plus issue when it comes to taxes.
All right. So the reason somebody might do that is if somebody were to be going into long-term care and they were worried that the nursing home was going to steal their house away from them because they couldn't pay the bill. And they're trying to shelter that, and that's a 5-year situation. So, Greg, we've talked about that before. What are the other problems that people could run into here?
So, Randy, you think the government couldn't figure that one out? Hey, I'm going into the nursing home real quick. I'm going to transfer my house to my kids. You don't think they've closed that loophole? Do you think they're not going to be like, oh, you got us. You get to keep it now? So, unfortunately, Phil outed me. I am an attorney. Don't hold it against me. And building one of the larger estate planning elder law shops here in the Midwest, we deal with this a lot. I will start with the good stuff. You can fix it. If you've already done this and you're panicking right now, you can fix it. It's all fixable. This are all things that attorneys can fix. It's not done. So when you transfer something during your life, these lifetime gifts, this is many times due to a neighbor's advice, a interweb advice. It was on TikTok or some other stupid thing that, some goofball was shouting off. Or unfortunately, I'm going to say it, Randy, financial advisor's advice. Because they're thinking, hey, get it out of your name. Yeah, that's great. So if you go in a nursing home, you can, that's one issue. Or you can avoid probate. It just makes it easier. As Phil very eloquently broke out, a lifetime gift is going to, essentially eliminate the opportunity for a step up on cost basis. So you're going to pay capital gains tax. The recipient, the kids, will have to say it when they do sell the house. That's a tactical cash problem. But there are lifetime problems during your life. Let's talk about you, because I think we're always thinking about, well, I'm gone, I'm dead, I don't care about what Phil said. Okay, fair enough. If you want to give $20,000 to Uncle Sam, that's your choice. Well done. But let's talk about how it can screw your life up. And you don't think this happens, I will give you a Google search you can look up, and you can see it happens almost every month, every year across the country, which is, I'm going to transfer my house to my kids. That's the most common thing. Joe's a great guy, great kid, executive at the, Joe Blow Corporation. And I just think he's got a great head on his shoulders, great with finance. And that can all be true. But what if your son Joe gets divorced after you transfer your house to them? Guess what? Said daughter-in-law owns half your house. Ruh-roh. And it was not a very positive divorce. It was kind of nasty. You think they're going to be like, she's like, no, we should give that back to your parents. No. You are in a lot of trouble. Look this up. It happens all the time. Or what if Joe is an entrepreneur and files bankruptcy? Again, the house is not yours. These are all big uh-ohs in terms of life. And I know every parent, you can't believe how many times this has happened in our practice. We're like, that won't happen to us. I'm like, dudes, divorce is like 60%. There's a 60% chance this is happening. I hate to be the one that just uses math to hurt feelings. And I know that you're special and your parenting was excellent. But at the end of the day, life does happen. And can we do things that don't require any risk? Because there's a lot of options here that require no risk of any in-laws or creditors or bankruptcy or step-ups in cost basis. And the nastiest thing that happens is that if you transfer your house to your kid and you go to apply for government benefits for a nursing home, you own a nursing home, they look back 5 years, and they obviously, when you transfer something, there is a record of in the deed, right? The deed has to be filed for a transfer. So they see that transfer. Well, guess what? They're going to take that entire value of your home, divide it by the average monthly costs of nursing home care, and that's how many months you're ineligible. And for most people, it is years, meaning that governments will not pay a penny during that whole period of time, even if you're out of money. So you get evicted. You don't think people get evicted from nursing homes? Look that up too. They do. Now they have to find other not so nice nursing homes to put them in. And trust me, those do exist. And you don't want to go to those. And most people don't want to go to any nursing home, but you really don't want to go to those. And these are things where the kids actually end up not paying, or they can't pay, or they can't sell it, or there's all kinds of these terrible situations. This is a lot of reality checking to make sure that people don't do the short, easy route, do the smart, medium route, which is a lot of times if you want to protect assets from probate, taxes, long-term care, asset protection trusts are a proven way used across the country by almost every elder law firm in the country, which holds the home, maintains your step up in cost basis, after 5 years protects your house from the nursing home for your spouse and then ultimately your kids, and avoids probate. It does all of those things. You can also put other cool stuff in it, barns, property, investments, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to your home, these are all easy things that the assets are still there and safe if you need them. In cases of emergency, you can still break the glass. Don't take the shortcuts. That's why our legal protection plan is part of every roadmap we build, where our team of attorneys, not goofball financial advisors, sorry, Phil, we just have to make sure that we have the right people involved that have the right, expertise when they're building a full retirement plan that takes into factor the legal, the tax, and the finance. And to do that, you have to have the right people there. So that's why the roadmap was built this way, Randy. And hopefully if people want a free look at what that could look like for them, or how those trusts work, or what other legal options are out there based on their unique situation, we highly recommend them coming in and taking advantage of that offer.
That's one of the differences at Golden Reserve. You go to a financial advisor, they're going to send you someplace else to do this. Golden Reserve will do it right here. And that means working together with your retirement planner and putting together a plan, whereas everything works together. That's the idea. Let's get you that roadmap for retirement and handle all those legal documents and your legal questions as well. GetYourRoadmap.com is the website. GetYourRoadmap.com. Bottom of the page is a place for you to put some information in there. Our team will reach out to you and we'll get the conversation going. So Phil is here, so I'm going to ask him a lot about fees, because this is an eye-opening moment when we do the fee analysis. A lot of people don't realize that their 401k and all these things are full of fees. And I think the kings of fees are the airline industry. In Canada, there's an airline called WestJet. You probably have heard of them. They are now disabling the reclining feature on all their seats. And if you want your seat to recline, you have to pay extra. You have to pay an extra fee. Now, Phil, you're a pretty big guy. I'm sure that you've had a chair come right back onto your knees at some point, haven't you?
Yeah, and it's like, how much are we really giving up? For like domestic flights, it's like that 0.5 inches of recline. Like,
right.
I'm good. I don't need this extra quarter inch of knee space. So it's a funny one.
But I gotta believe that, when it comes to fees, I mean, we talk about the financial industry. They're expert at doing it. They're not expert at telling us about it, though. And that's one of the things that, as you sit down with people, the fee analysis the Golden Reserve does, it's an eye-opening moment for some people that these fees are there and how much they're actually paying, not only for their investments, but also for their financial advisor.
Yeah, absolutely. Digging in and getting an understanding of all those hidden costs, those fees behind the scenes. Sometimes you'd be shocked, though. People are willing to pay an extra % or an extra 0.5% for their advisor because they really like them. Mm-hmm. And they don't know how big that impacts. So let's cover that. What is the impact of these fees? So I'm going to say numbers. So I'm going to go slow here.
Okay.
If you had $100,000 and it grows at 7% annually for 30 years, comparing a 1% fee to a 0.2% fee. So think of this as a 1% investment versus a 0.2%. The difference is $146,000 difference. So you'd have $146,000 more at the end of those 30 years with that lower expense. So just that, not even 1%, 0.8% difference does make a big difference. And they're hidden. A lot of these costs are hidden behind the scenes. Let's talk about some of the different types of investments, because it does matter. There's the new kids on the block with the index funds, the ETFs. These have really done a good job. The popularity of them has pushed expense ratios down. So they're right now, the average expense ratio is 0.4% in 2020 as of 2024. From 1996 to 2004, there's been a 62% drop in total fees.
Wow. Okay.
ETFs really low, 0.02 to 0.25, but still some of the most popular investments out there, especially in things like 401ks, actively managed mutual funds, still to this day, 0.75 to 1.5%. Right, we've got, we want to invest like the wealthy, hedge funds, private equity, 2% plus performance fees. Right, when it comes to the investments that you pick, or maybe that your advisor's picking, it really does matter what those expenses are, but oftentimes they avoid talking about them. Honestly, I feel like most financial advisors don't even know the cost of their investments. They just know they sound really good and I can sell that. That sector rotating, momentum focus, I can sell that. But when it comes down to it, that cost is the biggest difference, not the type of investment or what they're trying to do with it.
And Greg, as you do the fee analysis, I mean, that's part of this whole thing is, if we want to know this information, we've got to dig, or we've got to get somebody else to dig for us. That's what's kind of maddening about this whole thing, is you get charged for it and you don't even know it.
It's a big deal, right? So I think about it like the most disappointing upgrade of all time. So for my birthday this year, my wife was a wonderful wife, and Fernanda's like one of my favorite bands is Whiskey Myers and Josh Malloy, some country music and rock and roll singers. So we went to Nashville, and she splurged and got us the VIP, version. So she was so excited. We show up a half hour early. We thought we were going to meet the band. We were going to do all these things, and what they did is they walked us through basically the general seating area. And we ended up at a corner in front of a food truck, and they gave us 2 plastic cups. And they said, congratulations, the VIP trip's over. And I'm thinking to myself, well, we're here like an hour early, so now what are we going to do? And all I have is a big, dumb plastic cup I have to carry around all the time, and I don't even want soda. So what is this? It's not you can fill this thing up with beer. So it was one of those upgrades that you're just kind of like, I don't get it. And it's the same when you get an actively managed mutual fund, where at the end of the day, you're losing to the S&P 500, and you're like, I just paid 1%. On $1 million, that's 10 grand. And you're telling me I could have paid 0.02 or 0.08 or whatever the expense ratios that Phil rattled off were. Those things hurt your feelings. You're like, these upgrades aren't upgrades at all. They're just a legacy system that haven't been completely phased out yet, but they will as they continue and people get smarter, that they say, you know what? I'm not getting any more. I'm actually getting less. And in Phil's example, he said, that's 100,000. If it was $1 million, it would have been $1.46 million less. $1.46 million on $1 million account less, just for 1%. And gosh, if you had actively managed mutual funds, double it, Randy, double it, because now you have 2%. These are the things that I think really add up. Just to close the loop on the crappy airlines in Canada, if they're taking things away, the irony about the financial industry is, what are they going to take away, right? If you're building a car, it needs wheels, brakes, windows, an engine, and you can't take any of these things away or they don't work. The financial industry started off with no reclining. It's like, we're just going to guess and pick investments and hope no one notices. It's not like they're taking away tax planning. They're not taking away legal planning, because it was never included to begin with. So you were already on a cargo plane full of chickens, and now you're still you're still flying around saying they can't take anything away. All they're doing is stock guessing and overcharging investments. So maybe an upgrade is in order, that you're not just walking away with a plastic cup or next to a couple chickens. You're getting real services that have legal planning and tax planning. And it's not an a la carte thing where you're adding or paying more. It's actually part of their plan, because you really can't drive a car without wheels and engine, and you can't do retirement planning without tax and legal included as part of the overall plan. That is why the roadmap exists. That's why we mesh together the 3 primary needs of a retiree, because otherwise you can't do it, Randy. That's what the roadmap's all about.
In what other industry would you choose to work with where they charge you more and you get less? What a great deal. Nah, that's not what you want. We could point that out to you when we do the roadmap for retirement. The fee analysis is a big part of that. You should know how much money is going in other people's pockets and not into yours, and know what to do about it. Give us a look on the website, getyourroadmap.com. That's getyourroadmap.com. All right, so guys, let's talk a little bit about this part of the end of the year. A lot of people are going to be looking at their 401ks, and they're going to be saying, okay, that looks pretty good to me. What does it do for me in retirement? How do I make a paycheck out of this? And generally with your 401k, you have a couple of choices. You can leave that money in your former company's plan, or you can roll it over to an IRA. And that would be your first move in retirement. So, Phil, kind of break down for me, what are the ups and the downs of both of those? Moving it over to your personal account or leaving it with your employer, your former employer, so to speak.
Yeah, and some people don't understand that you can just leave it in the 401k, but you can. You're allowed to leave it there. And this one actually surprised me. 46%, about half of retirees roll their 401k over, and half of them keep it in the 401k. So it's pretty split down the middle. Now, 401ks, let's break those down. One of the, in my opinion, drawbacks is that you're limited on your options. A typical 401k has 17 to 28 investment options. So you don't have, the whole world to pick from. And plans are all work a little bit differently. So we're talking about retirement. So the goal is to spend our money. A lot of them work differently. Some give you full access, free withdrawals whenever you want. Some will let you take withdrawals, but you're only allowed, 4 per year. Other plans, the worst ones, it's all or nothing. You don't have options of taking a piece out. You've got to take the whole thing. So it's some restrictions on withdrawals. And I think long-term, also, if you're in your 401k with a former employer, well, that former employer can change their 401k plan. Oh, we're going from Fidelity to Charles Schwab. When they make that change, you're making it with them. You don't have a say, but you might miss some of that employer communication about the change, right? So it can cause some confusion. which is why I'm surprised it's 50-50. In my mind, rolling it to an IRA just makes sense. There's no taxes when you roll it to an IRA, but now you've got a little bit more freedom. You can pick any investment under the sun, but there's more responsibility with that too, right? Because there's good and bad investments out there. We don't necessarily want to have the freedom and pick a high cost active advantage mutual fund. So, but you do have more options, more flexibility. You've got full access and withdrawal ability with this, and you dictate where and with who you invest with. So because of those reasons, most people that we work with obviously roll those 401ks over into an IRA.
Phil, we just did a segment there about fees. Do you find that the employer 401k would have higher fee structure than if you rolled it over to your own brokerage account, your own IRA, or is it just apples to oranges? It's just same thing.
Depends on the investments you pick. There's going to be some 401k costs, some administrative costs just for the plan in general. If you roll it over to an advisor, obviously you're going to start paying that advisor fee on top of the investment costs, but a lot of it depends on what investments you pick. If you pick some of those low cost index funds outside or inside the 401k, it's going to be low cost, but oftentimes those 401ks, maybe we don't have those options. So there's only active managed mutual funds, those higher fee accounts.
So Greg, having it under your control just seems like a better idea overall, doesn't it?
Well, I mean, Randy, do you want just Napoleon ice cream, chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry? In that weird box, using it, they all taste freezer burned. You know what I'm talking about, the Kroger weird one. As a grown-up kid with not a lot of resources, that's all we had. And I thought it was all right. But usually, what was gone? The chocolate was always gone first, then the vanilla, and then the weird strawberry was left. I want Rocky Road. I want some graters, maybe some salted caramel, toffee, coffee. I don't know. You want options, right? When it comes to delicious ice cream, you want options when it comes to your investments. More options equal better deals. The bigger the market, the more efficient it is. That's just the way economics work. So get your 401k out of the Kroger frozen food section where you have the weird 3 options and bring it into the world where you can have everything. And maybe there's ice cream sandwiches you don't even know about. And I think that is the real magic of getting your plan into someone's hands that can say, here's everything that's out there. Maybe there's buffered ETFs, buffered notes, bonds, annuities, CDs, money markets, different equities, alternatives. There's a whole world out there that could be a better fit for you. And when you're in that closed universe of a 401k, there's always the fee concern, but there's also the options concern. So I like the idea of having as many options as possible in life, particularly when it comes to ice cream, but also in retirement. So, I encourage everyone else to take a hard look and probably kick the tires. And, the good way to start, Randy, the roadmap gets you started to see at least the baseline. Is your retirement in good health? Do you need a tune-up? Is there gaps? Are there issues? We attack some of the largest issues in retirement for folks: fees, taxes, market risk, legal planning and income for everyone. And we do it at no cost.
You're listening to Fire Your Financial Advisor with Greg Ayler and Phil Huff at Golden Reserve. Online, you can find us, getyourroadmap.com. And I encourage you to do that. Around a little bit, learn more about Golden Reserve, and then down at the bottom of the page is a place for you to put a little information there so that our team will reach out to you and start the conversation. What is it that you're concerned about when it comes to retirement? Is it taxes? Is it Social Security? Is it healthcare? Well, let's get it all answered for you and go through the nuts and bolts of retirement planning. If you pay any attention to the financial headlines, you'll see things that, we're going through earnings season. And that's where they say, okay, we estimated how well we were going to do. Here's how we did. And then we made money. We didn't make money. The market goes up. The market goes down. They estimate. So, Phil, you're the person who sits in front of people. Do people come in with some estimates of how well they're going to do in retirement or in the market, or what shape they're in? Did they overestimate, underestimate? What do you see as far as that is concerned?
You see them all over the place, right? Some think they're in better shape than they are. Some think they're in worse. There are some specific areas, I think, that people make assumptions on that don't necessarily always ring true. One of the big ones outside of the investment world is just taxes, right? The idea that, we're going to be at a lower tax rate in retirement because we're losing income, right? We're going to be on Social Security, pension. And it's true at first, right? Our income is going to drop. We're going to be at a lower income level at first. But over time, you're going to start to get to a higher and higher tax level, right? Eventually, when we turn 73 or soon to be 75, we have our RMDs where we have to start taking money out of our IRAs. And then that required amount, ticks up over time. So by the time we're in our 80s and 90s, it's not that small 4% anymore. And then what happens? There's potential that our historically low tax rates go up, where we're used to paying 10 to 15% in retirement and they just double on us. and now we're paying 20 to 30%. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but that could happen, right? One thing that will definitely jump tax rates when one spouse passes away, we've talked about it before, the widow's penalty. Now we're hopefully, knock on wood, later in life, and our RMDs aren't 4% anymore. Maybe they're 6, 7, 8% of our IRAs. So that surviving spouse has to take out 8% and pay income tax at single rates, oftentimes paying twice as much as they did when they're filing joint. Right? So this idea that we're going to be in lower rates is true at first, but if we don't do anything over time, tax rates, they're going to go up. Those RMDs are going to push us up. So that's one of the big reasons we focus on how do we have a plan when you first retire, right? How can we attack that? We've got most people save in their 401ks and IRAs. How can we attack it day one when we're in those lower income rates? How do we take this money, pay the taxes on it, whether that's to go and spend it and enjoy it, whether that's Roth conversion, protect it in a trust. There's multiple things you can do with it, but let's pay taxes earlier when we do, where we can take advantage of some of those lower tax rates.
Greg, other ways that you see people walk into retirement maybe saying that they'll do either better or worse than what they thought. What are some of the areas you see?
I think the big thing that always catches my eye is the spending. And I think the industry does a terrible job of preparing people on understanding how they're going to live in their retirement. No one really knows but you, right? You may be the person that says, I'm going to go travel and we're going out to dinner all the time. And then you realize, I don't like to travel and I like to be home more often, or the places I want to go out to eat aren't too fancy, or I want to be around and watch the grandkids, or, a lot of things change as you live your life. And in retirement, the spending is like a smiley face, no different than the happiness that we talked about earlier. And it starts off high, and then the older you get, you spend less and less and less. And then you have some healthcare issues come up at the end, and it goes up again. So it is a smiley face. And I think, unfortunately, most income plans project as a flat line, which defies logic. They also exaggerate spending because I think people are like, well, I was making $125,000 before I retired. I'm probably going to spend about $125,000. But they forget that you were probably servicing a mortgage, paying off kids' debt, doing all types of intangible balance sheet type items that may not be around anymore. The AARP does a study, gosh, we talk about it all the time, but I think it's important, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but, don't quote me on it. It's around $70,000 is what a person will spend a year. So why do I share all this? Because if you think you're going to overspend in retirement, yearly budget goes down. It says, well, you can only spend this much because you're going to be spending $100,000 a year. You can only spend, or, you can only spend this much. It needs to go backwards, and it goes backwards. You can't spend that much. And you end up doing less, spending less. And then when push comes to shove and you get later in life and you don't really probably have the desire or need, you start to regret, why didn't I go to Ireland? Why didn't I go to Italy? Why didn't we go on that Alaska? Well, remember the financial advisor had that plan, so we're going to run out of money, because that's the number one fear for retirees. So when we look back at that, we don't want people to look back with regret and say, I wish I would have done more. I want a life lived full of memory dividends that are like, man, we did a lot of awesome stuff. I did everything I wanted to do in life. And that's really the goal. So we know that people need help doing that. And unfortunately, the industry is not aligned with you. I know it's hard to believe, but the entire industry is not aligned with retirees. Proof? If you spend your money, they take a pay cut. They're getting charged 1%. Think about it. If you go out and spend more of your money, the amount they get goes smaller. And I think that's a real hard truth that we have to accept as retirees and as a retirement planning company. If we want to change the industry, we have to change the model. And to start that process, we came up with our income forecast. This tool basically takes what you spent the previous year and shoots it forward 25 years with a very reasonable, 5% growth rate. The idea is simple. Let's make it so, conservative that you can't question it. Put some inflation and cost of living and healthcare stuff in there too in your travel budget. And let's see if the accounts go up. And if the accounts go up, guess what happens, Randy?
They spend more.
People start spending more money with each year of their early years of retirement. That's the whole idea. So the income forecast has turned into such an awesome tool, not just from a financial standpoint, but from a life standpoint, a marketing standpoint for us, because it's basically the hall pass to spend more money. Spouses love it. They're like, told you we didn't spend enough. And next year they keep getting to do an extra trip or an extra purchase. It's this amazing tool that's based off not some Wall Street model that has no idea how Midwesterners live their lives and their values that are important to us. It's built by you. It's how you lived last year. We just push it forward. And that's all it takes to build confidence in retirement to live your best retirement, Randy.
Wouldn't it be nice in retirement if you could say a lot, yeah, we can do that. Somebody comes up with an idea. Yeah, we can do that. That's the kind of retirement we would love for you. And we'll build that for you in our roadmap for retirement. That's the whole idea. Talking about market risk and taxes and fees and the legal aspects, all the legal documents and the long-term care, all that goes into that. And of course, the income forecast as well. GetYourRoadmap.com. Somebody writes in, so far I'm doing pretty good. Approaching retirement with about $800,000 in savings. My question is, after maxing out my tax-advantaged retirement accounts, what's next? A great question, because I think that, when you're in your 60s and you start to see that number in your 401k go up and you go, should I start doing something else? Phil, what is the answer to that? All that tax-deferred money, it seems like that becomes a problem later. Maybe we should go another direction. What's your answer to that one?
Yeah, I think that close to retirement, I mean, as long as you have a plan to proactively detax the IRA, that close to retirement, you should be trying to max out that 401k. If you're in your higher income years, defer the income just a few years, and then you can start tax planning it out, whether that's spending it, putting it in a trust, Roth conversion. But as long as you're going to have that back half of the plan, right? If your plan is to follow Uncle Sam's rule, defer, then pay the taxes now. So if you're already doing that, if you're already maxing out, the 401k, there's a lot of things you can do. I would say first, you're approaching retirement with 800,000. Congrats. That's a great place to be. But let's start planning out, and figuring out what retirement looks like for us. What do we actually spend, right? Get a baseline for what matters and what are we going to transition into? If we haven't already, pay down debt. Pay off debt is a great one. Build the emergency savings. Assuming if he's maxing out his 401k, he's already done these things. Hopefully, paying down debt, building the savings is a big one. And then beyond that, you can start saving in an after-tax account, right? Mm-hmm. An account where you never again pay taxes on what you put into it. You only pay taxes on the gains of these accounts. Another good one to have in retirement. We talk about options, investment options, and tax plan options. One of them too is tax status options and where we have our money. We want some pre-tax money, the 401k dollars. We want some post-tax dollars like that, where we don't pay on the base, but we pay on the gains. And of course, we want tax-free dollars as well, things like Roth IRAs, Roth 401ks. So having kind of that diversity and that blend of all three types of accounts is important.
Greg, this is one of the advantages of sitting down with a retirement planner, because as this guy says right here, I just don't know. I mean, a lot of us know stocks, bonds, mutual funds, 401ks. That's all we know, kind of depending on you guys to kind of open up that world to us.
I love the idea of building together a strategy proactively, because there's always going to be more options, right? Like from a long-term care planning standpoint, if you're going to buy long-term care insurance, we usually don't sell it, but we can. The earlier you get on it, the cheaper it is. If you have a long-term care asset protection strategy from a legal standpoint, the more assets you can get outside your name over 5 years, the better position you're in. So the proactive nature of getting ahead of things makes it very, very strategic. You can also build your tax plan now and start to play through that. All of these things are great ways to start preparing for success. I always, tell my kids, tell the people I work with, the people that plan, win the day. And I think in retirement, this is the biggest financial decision you'll ever make. Don't just trust your Eddie Jones goofball around the corner that you golf with, who just happens to keep throwing your money into mutual funds every month. If you're not talking about tax planning, legal planning, and getting those things done, you probably want to kick the tires with someone else that actually has those tools and has those professionals, around the corner. I think it's so important to get a second opinion. And even if you don't use our services, use us. Get the right information. At the end of the day, I just want people to win. If you win without us, that's great. If you win with us, better. But without us, still great. And, that's the idea of the roadmap. It's no cost. It's complimentary. Come in, get the information. We do it at no charge or obligation. There's nothing you have to do other than show up and give us the information so that we can put it through our system, talk to our team of CPAs, talk to our attorneys, your retirement planner. We'll put it all together. We'll package it up nicely. And hopefully you'll see some gaps or some opportunities, or you'll see where you're doing well and you get a pat on the back. This is all for peace of mind. This is the big decision. You can't screw this one up, or you could be ending up working again, going back to, the workforce, which I think is everyone's biggest fear. So, get ahead of it and have a plan.
As we go through the show, I know that you have questions, and ways that you can get those questions in are two different things. You can use our YouTube channel, which is, just look up Fire Your Financial Advisor. You can ask some questions there in the comments section, or go to our website and start there as well. Get your questions answered by one of our team at Golden Reserve. GetYourRoadmap.com is the website. We are in the fourth quarter. We're into November, and that means people are having their end of the year financial meetings. And I see that the year is kind of slipping away on us here. So whether they're a client or not, Phil, what are the topics that you have to handle with people before the end of the year? Because there's kind of a window that closes on December 31st for some tax situations there. But what are you going over right now with people who are coming in to have those meetings?
Yeah, our end of the year meetings. So we typically do 2 meetings a year. One in the spring, which is more about, the dreaming, the income, the investments, what's life looking like for us. End of the year is our tax planning meeting. So we're very focused on tax planning. So a great time at the end of the year, things that are due by December 31st, with after tax accounts. If we want to do tax loss harvesting, right, we need to get that stuff done by the end of the year. Make sure you take your RMD. If you've ever missed an RMD, you know how painful it is. It's the largest penalty in the IRS code. It's a 50% penalty if you miss your RMD.
Yeesh.
Big one. So make sure we get that done. Your first year RMD is due by April 1st, the year after you turn 73. April 1st, not the 15th, not tax day, April 1st. Every year after your first year, your RMD is due by December 31st. So they catch you, right? They give you that first month. They give you a few months to miss it. But if you don't get used to it, because year 2, it's due by December 31st. So make sure you hit your RMD. And then the IRA tax planning, that's what we're talking about in our meetings, right? Most people, the vast majority of Americans' net worth is inside these 401ks and IRAs. I think Uncle Sam knows that. So he's changed the rules on these accounts every year since 2020, trying to get more and more of your 401k. Don't let a year go by without planning. How much should we be taking out of these IRAs? Pay the tax now so that we can avoid paying at future higher tax rates, widows, kiddos penalties, right? Whether it's building our Roth balance, building our trust balance, building our memory dividends, as Greg's talking about, and spending and using that money. Or if we've got a trip in April, maybe we take money from our IRA today to pay for that trip in April so we can take advantage of tax rates. So all of these big ideas are what you want to cover. RMDs, tax loss harvesting, but definitely taxes on the IRA. That's why all of our meetings this time of year are planned and geared towards taxes.
And Greg, when I think about those meetings, twice a year mandatory, and we're going to get those meetings in. But as things change in your life, and they can change financially and personally, those are times also to come in. I know charitable giving is something that people talk about at the end of the year as well. There's lots of reasons to sit down right now.
Absolutely. And I love that, the tax thing is always, one of the things that everyone talks about, and it's common. I don't think people focus on the capital gains tax harvesting. I just want to make sure we reiterate that. I mean, that's a great opportunity to leverage some losses against gains. You can make some moves there and talk through your financial, game plan to maximize some savings and make some of your winners keep a little more. People don't realize that. That's a huge opportunity to maximize, especially with the way the stock market is with so, few top heavy winners. You can kind of throw off some of those losses that maybe are in other parts of your portfolio to maximize your capital gains tax saving for each year. Now, that's only regarding after tax accounts, not 401ks or IRAs. But when it comes to 401ks and IRAs, I just want to say it again, it is very important to pay the tax and have a plan to pay the tax and maximize your lower rates in retirement earlier versus later. Don't wait till 73 and use Uncle Sam's plan. We've talked about this at every show at length. It's what makes us different. I think we have to have those hard conversations, do the hard things so that you can keep more money in your pocket. But the legal parts are some things, Randy, that a lot of times get missed. As building an estate planning law firm over the years, we realized many times health does change. Faculties do change. And sometimes that has significant impact on your plan. Who's in charge? Who's your power of attorney? Who's your healthcare power of attorney? Well, what if that person doesn't have the same capacity? What if they did slip a little bit? What if things are changing in your life? What about your income needs? Now we have extra health services. There was a unfortunate diagnosis or all these things happen in life. They need to be reflected, not just in the finance stuff, but in the legal stuff too. It's so important because these things affect you while you're alive. These are your living documents, your living directives. Who has access to your finances? Who has access to your healthcare decisions? Or what do I need to change to make sure that these pieces are correct? What if a kid lives closer now, or that they moved away, or they're estranged, or family dynamics shift? Life happens. Your legal plan should always reflect these things. And that's part of our, when we're bringing people in every year, we're not just talking about finances and taxes, which is, the popular topics, but we're also talking about the legal stuff where it's not like your 30s where you just get a will and you're done for 20 or 30 years. You should be thinking about your legal plan every year in conjunction with your retirement plan. That's where you're at in life. And that's why our attorneys are right around the corner to help. At every turn, if you have questions or you want to make some updates or give some more money to your grandkids, all those fun things get talked about at every annual review meeting because, Randy, that's part of retirement. That legacy plan is a huge part that gets missed by the financial industry too often, and then it gets screwed up. And then at the end of life, it's a mess. Too many administration fees. Money doesn't go to the right people. Families are estranged because mom and dad didn't make the right decisions or didn't make it clear what was going on. All of those things can be avoided with some just tune-up items every year, and that's why it's on our docket.
And as we go through that list, when you think about it, income and tax loss harvesting and RMDs and charitable givings and Roth conversions and fees, all these things that the guys have mentioned, do you have all of that in place? Maybe you have some of it in place, but do you have all of it in place? And if you don't, let's check off all those boxes for your retirement. We have a way for you to do that. No cost, no obligation. We call it our roadmap for retirement. We'll put one together for you. Getyourroadmap.com is the website. Getyourroadmap.com.